All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it, close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.
We can open the meeting at 6:14. Agenda, just printed nothing out, unfortunately. So Rod's taking notes and we're being taped also.
Everything will be edited out until you actually start the meeting. So everyone will know that because I was recording.
Oh, okay.
So everything gets edited out.
Oh, that's good. I don't want my kid hearing that.
And I'll be doing the editing, so
I guess I gotta
that's
watch
a
that.
guarantee.
Yeah, also trashing my former school, which now I just mentioned on the meeting time, so.
Just to make the agenda, so.
Love you
Yeah.
too.
Printer is still not doing too.
So what are we on now? What agenda item?
We're on tonight's agenda, which I'm looking for it on my computer because I had so many issues with my printer. So we have to do a roll call. Looks like we have 5, which is myself, Sarah, Greg, you, and Rod. And we don't. Nobody else, as far as I can see, is taping other than GCTV. Just hold on, folks. I'm hopefully finding it.
No, so roll call, minutes, pride poster.
Is that what you have? Can I just look at yours for a second? I don't have it. Yeah, the pride poster. We have. No, we don't take them up. The pride poster. I'm still waiting for the party to officially file the complaint. They have, the party has until November 1st to respond to our response, which is a very long time. We had a short, like 14-day window, but she has till November November 1st.
So point of order, Madam Chair.
Sure.
You're talking about the open meeting complaint, are you not?
Yes.
All right, so what I'm looking at here on 4, this was our motion to do an investigation hearing on the Pride poster removal.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what your intent was in putting that agenda on there? Do you
I-
want to talk about the open meeting complaint or what we're supposed to be doing as far as an investigation and administrative hearing?
Well, I was giving us a little status update as backdrop to this. And so that's what that was about, and that's part of the holding pattern. I guess I have felt that we did, you know, with our meetings, we had all our paperwork, and we had an investigation. We've submitted everything, and I just thought it answered everything. But I see now it may not have been the town hall's investigation. And my guess is they're not going to respond until the decision is made what to do there. So
I'm confused. What does one have to do with the other?
I think they're tied. I mean,
I don't.
think they're.
I don't. We had
Okay.
someone from the mayor's office, a citizen, make an open meeting complaint on this commission regarding an issue,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we also made a motion pursuant to our ordinance to conduct an investigation and hold an administrative hearing into the circumstances of the issue that had nothing to do with the open meeting complaint, as far as I know. So,
The open meeting complaint, we resolved, we did our part.
we're resolved.
It's
We
over.
held our executive session, we sent our response. Now we need to move on, as far as I know,
Okay.
to the citizen, to what we agreed to do unanimously 3 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
or 4, into what happened with the Franklin County Pride poster issue at the town hall. Right?
Yes, and I think I've had them, I'm just looking for my own agenda here, but anyway, I was thinking they were the same, and that was my error. So I think what I need to do now is certainly, you know, correct that and mail the motion to send the motion to the mayor's office, which I should have done before. And we were also in the mix of investigating all of what was going on, and it was, I guess, my intention to, and maybe I was wrong on that, but it was, you know, my intention to let that settle out first. I thought we would hear from Boston by now, but we don't. So tomorrow morning I'll send that, or tonight I'll send it to the mayor's office and see what kind of a response we get. And that was, I guess, my misunderstanding of that process. So apologies. Hmm? Yes, please.
The motion to investigate happened first.
It did,
You
yes.
did, and the open meeting law violation was filed the day after.
That's right.
So my question is, so the mayor's office has not been notified other than via our agenda that we have the motion to investigate? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Just wanted to-
We're gonna talk about the mayor's office too.
Was there, do I remember correctly, like on 2 months ago agenda, there was like did the mayor respond to that investigation in any way? I thought that there was some sort of a response. I guess I was under the impression that you did send that
Mm-hmm.
to the mayor, and I thought that the agenda stated that he had responded in some way, but that could be not the case. I don't know.
Any responses I have received from them was regarding the open meeting law issue. And to be honest, I was also in the mix of that, which there were days it just took hours out of my time, and I was really focusing on those deadlines that we have to adhere to. Never having been through a complaint before, it was all new to me. So a lot of the correspondence I had was, what do I do next? You know, after reading everything, it's still a little complicated. And that was dealing with the mayor's office, with the town clerk, and with the attorney general's office. It took a lot of time. I
Yeah,
mean,
so
it
open
really
meeting,
did.
we kind of
I put
took
that
care of
in
that
there.
part.
Yes,
And,
yes.
and then we'll
I
still
want to
follow.
take a
Can I
step
make a
back
motion?
also.
Sure, Sarah.
Can I make a motion then? Can I make a motion to table the agenda item, the investigation until the mayor is properly notified?
No. I mean, you can,
Yes,
but I
of
would
course you
vote
can.
against it.
Okay.
Because, and I will say this, we are 3 to 4 months into the motion on the investigation. This commission should have, in my opinion, and rightly should have, pursuant to its enabling ordinance, pursue the investigation administrative hearing immediately. Immediately being in a matter of 30 to 60 days, which is reasonable. The fact that we're even discussing on October 15th notifying the mayor, which in my opinion should be a courtesy, and this carbon copy with an email, is just, it is just amazing to me. Why we would want to table it again, for all practical purposes, we've tabled it for 3 months. Why we would feel the need as a commission to extend this even more is just...
I can explain myself.
Okay,
Because
please.
the reason why I had that suggestion is, because I'm not certain, and maybe clarify for me, that the CCing them on our agenda is good enough as a notification. Because if we're launching an investigation, right, and he's not notified and we go forward, wouldn't that also be another open meeting violation?
No.
Yeah, that's my question, because I don't know, so I'm honestly asking the question.
Yeah. Well, my response individually would be no. This is, and I've said this several times since last spring, this is an independent municipal board and commission that has an enabling ordinance and bylaw, that it should be living by. I think it's wonderful to notify them. I think the mayor knows. Okay. And I think we should notify him, but the fact that we haven't made any movement on this because we think it has to do with the open meeting violation,
Well, I mean,
I think is slightly disingenuous. As you said, we did this before the open meeting violation ever hit the fan. So, and we haven't made any kind of movement on it. If you want to delay for the purposes of gathering witnesses and material, I would be more inclined to support something like this. But if somebody were to second it and you want to go forward on it, fine.
Well, I think this issue has sort of begun a little backwards. I mean, Sarah, you certainly can make any motion that you want. It appears we may have already had part of the discussion part of that, which comes after the motion in a second. So you're certainly welcome to do that, and we can have it seconded. We've had some of the discussion already, which isn't completely in order, but we can work with that. So I think you should make the motion if you're feeling that's what you wanted to do. You shouldn't be discouraged because discussion happened before you made it. You're absolutely entitled to make the motion and have it part of our record.
I'm going to stay with the motion.
You're gonna make it?
Yes,
or
I'm going to make the
Good.
motion to suspend.
All right.
Table
Go ahead.
the agenda.
Okay,
So
all
do I
right,
have a second?
second.
So what is the motion exactly?
To table the agenda item regarding the investigation into the Pride Flyer poster until all parties are properly notified and information is gathered, because I do agree with you as well. I'll do a friendly amendment to my motion.
Mhm.
so I guess I gotta ask, and I don't mean this in a really questioning way, but the agenda item does say, as I read it, that it's about the removal of the poster. So to me, that means it's referring to the motion and not the open meeting law violation. So I think we've established the meeting law violation is in the past. Boston's gonna do whatever they do, I think that that's over. We don't have to do anything else about that ever again.
Mhm.
They're either gonna file it or not file it, doesn't really affect us at all.
Right.
So, we can move on from that, I guess we would do.
But
what
I'm
you-
not connecting the two,
Right.
that's what is confusion. I'm
Yeah,
not
so-
making the motion because of that.
Yeah, so-
I'm saying if we do this, would that be another,
Yeah.
not in
Yeah,
reference to
you
the
would like to
first?
table the investigation of the Pride poster
Yes,
in general, yeah.
yes, thank you.
So, to me, I guess I'll kind of echo Lou, and I don't want to like beat a dead horse about it, but it does seem like we've pretty much lost any sort of, momentum or, or credibility on investigating that since it's been, like 4 months. I'm not sure why we wouldn't have sent, I guess I had believed that we did send that to the mayor, because that was the motion, was to send it to the mayor. And so now we're 4 months later and we find out, this is the first time we hear that we didn't send it to the mayor. So at this point, not that I want to not go forward with the investigation, but I'm not sure that, I think our teeth are pretty much gone on that, so that's where I would fall.
Well, and I have to say, it's not the first time. We discussed this when we had the meeting in there, in the other room, that had been sort of put on the back burner because this was consuming so much of my time anyway. And I wanted to get it straight, I wanted to get it right, and that had been put on the back burner. And as I already said, if that's, that may very well have been wrong, and it would be on my shoulders, and I accept that. And, it's sounding as though this is the only time that this has happened, and I don't know who else was on the commission years ago when we had other people on the commission, and we had voted a number of things. One of them was to put a big ad in the paper regarding the drug issue, and the support and all of that. Still never happened, and I wasn't the chair at the time. So I guess it's not new ground that
Yeah, I don't
broke
want to
with that.
pinpoint anything on you at all, I'd rather
No,
move
that's
forward
fine,
and
and I'll take
say,
it, yeah.
hey, now we can submit our inquiry to the all involved parties
Mhm.
and maybe go from there.
And Sarah's correct, the mayor gets a copy of everything. His office, his administrative assistant gets it, and I'm also address it to him. There's two that go out one to his email and one to hers. So they know, and actually, last month was completely their fault that it didn't get posted, that the agenda didn't even get posted, and we didn't have a meeting.
Right. Now,
So,
well, I would just also add that, the situation has grown a little bit. Obviously, the city council addressed similar occurrences, and the finance director was terminated from her employment after, she did state during our meeting, in a public body meeting, that she was told that she would be terminated if she brought up the Pride poster issue at a city commission. So that's the most disturbing thing to me. I would really like to find out what happened with that. Even though it's 4 months down the line, I think it's worth digging in,
This simple answer has been, the contract wasn't renewed. And that was exactly what happened, even though, who knows what was going on in the background, but the contract wasn't renewed. But anyway, do we have any more discussion on Sarah's motion?
Yeah, sure. And to their credit, the people who were involved in this, above Elizabeth Procaccia, the treasurer, or who had the problem with the mayor, allegedly, the people who came with some of the Pride poster came to us in the first instance, because we're the Human Rights Commission. And for God's sakes, the thing is, this is what I keep saying, let's do human rights work. Let's stop either administratively or substantively seeking reasons and rationalizations not to do human rights work. They were here in the front row immediately when it happened. They wanted relief from this commission or something from this commission, and we're sitting here 4 months later. And 4 months later, we're asking that it be continued again.
Any further discussion, or are
I,
you
I,
finished?
I,
or-
no, I'm not
Okay,
finished.
all right, I thought you were.
I do object. And the other thing, well, that's enough. Yeah, I'm
Any
done.
further discussion? All in favor of Sarah's motion? I am. Are you?
I'm not gonna rescind the motion. If that's allowed.
I think it's allowed, but I think it's also good to have it
I-
on
Yeah,
record.
let the vote happen and
Yeah,
we'll
no,
move
I'm,
on. No wrong.
I'm not gonna decline that.
It's a fine line, I mean, we're all on the same page
No,
here,
it's
I think.
okay,
We-
but I listened to what everybody said, and it's filtered out, and I agree. My question was more of a procedural one, because I'm a new commissioner, and so I want to make sure that protocol is being
Right,
set
well,
forth, so that we don't get into a situation where we get backlogged like this again, and get distracted from the human rights work that Lou was talking about, so.
I
I'm gonna-
agree with you in the sense that how can we really discuss it because we haven't started it?
Right.
You know what I mean? So in my eyes, it is tabled after we decide that we're gonna move on it now. So in all, we are tabling it, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm not sure that voting on the motion, we're pretty much tabling it either way, right?
Okay,
Because-
I see your point.
what else
Okay,
can we
then
talk
I'll-
about?
Then I'll vote yes then.
So,
Thanks
You're gonna
for
what?
clarifying.
You're voting yes? Okay.
For clarification.
yeah, I'm voting yes too. We gotta just start the investigation before we can discuss it.
Okay.
And I think I 100% agree with Lou. It's a little bit, it's not really right that we let it go 4 months, but we can't change that. We ought to just dig in full speed now and see what we can make of it.
Okay, any no's?
No.
No abstains? Okay. The motion does not pass, but it's on the record. That's good. And, I also want to say something about some of the comments that we do human rights work here. And that is not always, well, it's, when we had that woman here a while ago from the Center for New Americans, she was here. She was here as a piece of the educational part of what we should be doing as human rights commissioners. I learned a lot from her. However, when she came in, it was questioned as to why she was even here. And, so that's all part of the human rights piece of it that we do. And from the months from when this whole, that meeting happened, it's been mentioned, I worked on a lot of that stuff. I didn't have anybody else come forward and say, do you want me to look into this for you? Maybe I could have delegated, but I was sort of in the role of being in shock that we had that complaint, alleged complaint filed, and dealing with that. So I was dealing with that on my own, and so, like I said, nobody came forward and said, something we can do or whatever. So anyway, I'll take the responsibility of that. I can do that, and I'll send him an email tonight.
We can investigate now, so it's not a loss,
Yeah.
it's not a
No,
lost
it
cause.
isn't. And
It still happened and.
I think the emotional piece of it has been subdued a bit, which may give to a better investigation too. Sarah, could you get up the agenda again? I still can't find it online.
No, at this point, are you good with contacting them between you and Sarah? Or do you want anyone else to jump in on that? Or?
Well, thank you. I'll send him an email tonight. I think it's, that the intense work was that dealing with the whole complaint.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of,
And it
just, that was,
The timing of which was a convenience. I mean, it definitely played a role in throwing us off the case a little bit, so.
it was not only that, it was also summertime, and we had to have our meeting within 14 days. And that was a struggle. People were away.
It was tough to.
It was, and then when we did schedule them, did you folks have a particular interest of something, or? Oh, okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
You know, so people were on vacation and we had meetings, we had a quorum sometimes and we didn't, so just scheduling our meeting on that was a real huge challenge, to be honest about it.
Right.
And it's understandable, you know, people go on vacation, people do other things, so we have regular lives too.
I'm very happy to share
Tough crowd.
contacts with anybody on the commission, other people that
I
involved.
would have walked
Yes.
out too.
I mean, Sarah certainly did a lot of the work beforehand, so I have to give her credit for that.
This isn't what I thought it was.
All right, any more on that issue?
First on the agenda for next month.
Yep. Maybe I'll talk about next month too. This, I believe, was Lou's mission, is the Human Rights Commission appoints a study committee to consider a housing first policy for the city of Greenfield, Massachusetts, and motions previously filed that are pending on homelessness prevention and homelessness.
Okay, I'd like to, if I may, run through these one by one. The Housing First policy is something that I was glad to see that the city is actually talking about with the Congressman McGovern and other associated people. It's probably the best way that, to approach the issue of homelessness in the community, in my opinion, based on what we know to date. It is something that will involve the city being in a more active role. It will involve the city. The basic philosophy is to secure housing for an individual or a family prior to anything else in terms of services, as something that leads to total stability and recovery when one has lost their home. So I think the fact that MJ Adams and the mayor are talking about this is great. I think it's something that we should study. Moreover, I call this a study committee, but because it is a study committee, to look into a potential policy we may want to recommend. The mayor's, I guess the latter part of the motion was, I made reference to the mayor's rapid rehousing initiative, such as it is. I thought it was a very good response at the time, short term, to what had happened to us at the Common. I thought the Common was a reasonably foreseeable thing, as many of us did. Some didn't in city government. Be that as it may, I thought rapid rehousing was an appropriate response, but I think a better long-term response would be in a housing first municipal policy that the city of Greenfield may wish to undertake. And I would ask that the Human Rights Commission study.
Yeah, the rapid rehousing would have been good if we actually did that, you know. So the city made a commitment and then did absolutely nothing involving that commitment. So just want to make sure that's on the record, that nobody was rapidly rehoused at all. They were removed from the common and that was that. So, oh, well, actually turns out we were not ready yet for the shelter to expand. So I know those things take time, but to commit that to people and kind of dangle that as, you know, well, you're leaving the common, but we're going to make sure we take care of you, and then basically say, you know, just kidding, we don't really care. That's a little rough, you know. That struck me as, you know, whether we were just waiting for the public sentiment to die down a little bit and hope that it kind of goes away. Certainly seems what happened on that.
So you're saying no one was rehoused?
No.
There were 6 people that were, 2 were placed in our existing shelter on Wells Street, and 4, the 4 they referenced in all of the media was actually a family that somebody from out of state, New York, was visiting, and they wanted a shelter in New York State, and said, hey, we have space for you, would you like to relocate to New York? The family agreed, and that was the rest of the folks that I have spoken to personally, they're in the outer woods of Greenfield, they're still homeless, they're just not bringing someone to know. So I have to agree with what Greg said, is that, you know, that put them right front and center, and everybody was more aware, raised awareness of the problem, but now that they're gone, like you said, and you said that I think one of the first, it's getting cold out. We're right where you said we were going to be, and they've moved to this opening from the shelter, this new shelter that's going to be going in the top floor of the existing Wells Street shelter. is not gonna be ready till November 1st. But I would not be surprised if they push that forward even more, so that we're in the dead of winter and these folks are still out there in the snow, in the cold. So the rapid rehousing really did not manifest itself. I think it probably was a good thought, but the housing first, I'd be interested to know more about that and what that looks like, because I think that's because we don't have a housing first policy in the state. If we've explored that, that we're not individuals don't have a right to shelter in the state. So what does that look like? What does a housing first policy look like? That's
For
what
Greenfield?
Yeah.
Or in general?
And for our community, since we're talking for Greenfield. for our
That's a good
community.
question. Maybe we can study that.
You have 4 motions there, right?
Yeah.
Yes, 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 and yes. I'll stop.
I can't see that
I'm just
from
gonna stop
over here.
talking now.
I mean, I just think we all agree on it. So anyway, do you want to do these separately or together?
Do them separately.
Okay, so we'll do this one first,
But
if you don't
I
mind.
want to add something to the previous discussion. I know that Captain Peavy, he took a family of 6 to New York. I know there was at least one individual who went to the shelter in New York. And actually the woman happened to be from Turner's, and she was home for a school reunion. Found out what was going on, and and took some of them with her. So I don't know how many others actually went, but I know there's at least one individual and a family of 6, which I believe went to her place. I'm not really sure where he took them. And the other piece of it is that a good part of the summer, there were meetings. I mean, there were meetings every week that I attended, and I also attended the town council meeting, and I attended other meetings on housing. And there's also, I sent out an email to everybody, and I think I got a response from Sarah certainly, and maybe from you too, Greg. It's this Wednesday night. There's a meeting right here at 5 o'clock, and it's dealing with funds for those types of things. And I don't have it right in front of me, but if you want to check your email, you can. And for people who are available, I'm planning to come to it, but I think for people who are available, it would be very good to attend, and you probably learn a lot more about what has been going on that we haven't been aware of to make all of this happen. To us, rapid rehousing means we snap our fingers and it happens. However, there is that bureaucracy that we have to deal with. And that there's many different departments that are involved. There's the health department, there's the fire department that has to make sure things are up to code, or whatever they do. So there are a lot of different people who have to be involved in this, and it seems to us maybe that it isn't rapid. Maybe it's being put into place as it is so that it's more of a long term also. If you get something really quick, it's like it may not last, but maybe this housing that the shelter issues that they're putting in place will be more permanent than what we've had. So anyway, I just want to say that on the former discussion.
I think it's important to really look at the facts of the common situation. Obviously, a lot of those folks were transients. They're not from Greenfield. Once the common was kind of open for camping based on the loopholes, more people came and camped there. Now, it's not to say that they don't deserve housing as well,
Right.
but it's a fair point to ask, where does Greenfield's responsibility end as far as who's going to be rehoused by the city?
Right.
So it was pretty quick to see who cleared out of there and said, oh, well, our gig is up, basically. We're not allowed to camp with the common anymore and move on somewhere else.
Right.
There's people who live that way. And they don't want
Right.
to live in a shelter in Greenfield. They just want to live somewhere
Yeah.
outdoors.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But what really kind of struck me was, how long we let the common go on when it was clearly an illegal encampment based on the health code. So I know we're very short on health inspectors, but they eventually made the right call, I believe, because certainly that was an issue. Should have never been allowed. There's people who've been camping on the common for 2 or 3 years, a couple tents, and we should have known at that point that it was something that should have been addressed. So that being said, I agree with those who say the common should not be for camping. 100% agree. But to do that, you have to have the resources and the structure in place to give people housing when they come and say, we need a shelter. So expanding the shelter is great,
Yes. yeah.
but as Sarah kind of alluded to, it doesn't take care of families who are borderline homeless,
Mhm.
you know, living apartment to apartment and staying with friends, staying in hotels. There's obviously a massive problem there.
Mhm.
So it's not gonna all be fixed by Greenfield, but it would be nice if there was a set, you know, I know there's the group that you mentioned on Wednesday, but it just seems that, we haven't been able to pinpoint exactly whose responsibility it is to address the homeless concern.
Yeah, and I think
You know.
Wednesday night will be important, you know, and the other piece of that is camping was not excluded from the common before. I mean, that's the town common has special rules all to itself. So, yeah, it was not at the time excluded. It was not a very good situation for the folks, especially during the really adverse weather.
It was temporary housing, which by state law requires it.
Right, right.
So-
And I think the other thing is, you know, the town tried to work with them too, you know, they sent counselors out, social workers out. I was there for part of that, and people took information and people were, you know, processing that. So it was not a rapid response or rapid rehousing as we would imagine. You know, rapid means very fast, you know, and with any sort of administration, very fast could be 3 months. So,
And I want to challenge the notion about the Board of Health, because I don't agree with that. I've read the regulations, the state regulations about temporary housing, the definition used, and a tent is not considered. You know, if that was the case, they'd have to go out into the woods and be tracking people that camp out in the woods, you know, for recreational purposes. I don't agree with that. I think our Board of Health is severely understaffed right now. We don't have anybody to do any of the things for the restaurants and the things like that. So I am still disagreeing with that. And like Maureen said, it is not illegal to camp on the common because it doesn't fall under the Parks and Recs rules like the rest of our Parks and Recs do. Town common is separate, has different rules, and so they're looking to change that, and they'll probably try to do that via bylaw and ordinance. You know, that's what the camping ordinance from the town council that actually they dropped back down. They dropped the committee because it never went to committee, so it's now in A&O committee for discussion. So I don't agree with that it's against the law, and it's not ideal for anybody, but most of all for the people that were there, and I think probably 3/4 of them, because I was there almost every day, were actually from Greenfield. And that was an optics that was put out there to make it look like these were outsiders. These people were actually from Greenfield.
Yeah.
And then the folks that were coming in at night were taking advantage of the situation, and a lot of the stuff that you saw in the press were people that were not camping. They were coming at night, they were engaging in activities, and that's what got the attention. But I just want to refocus what we're talking about here is about the motion that we were talking about the housing first and the subcommittee. So I'd like to yield the floor to Lou, if that's all right.
I'm ready to vote. Oh, I guess it needs a second. Did anyone second?
and this is which one,
The motion for you to appoint a study committee to make to study the matter and make a recommendation to us, and if we want to make a motion to the mayor and the council.
well, my point is, and I think I did say this, is there's already a lot going on with the housing issue. And I think attending these meetings is important because there's so much going on that we don't even know about. That is going on a daily basis with the housing issue. So I think in some respects it's reinventing the wheel. For us to vote on or to approve something like that. So that's just my take on it.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What is it that's going on behind the scenes that we're looking into?
Well,
Because in the interest of transparency, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't?
No, I don't, because I know what I read in the newspaper, and I know what is public knowledge. But if there's some grand mechanization going on behind the scenes to solve the housing and homeless crisis in Greenfield, I'm not aware of it.
They've been working on it forever.
Well, I don't use the newspaper as a only like resource for that
What
information.
is it you're using?
I am using the time that I've taken to attend these meetings, some of them on a weekly basis, with people who are working with the housing issue. And they're working on a daily basis. MJ has been there, Mary McClintock, and many others. And these meetings started in the summertime when the people were on the common. People within those groups have been designated to do certain things. And certainly having this meeting Wednesday night is part of the initiative coming out of the town hall. So those are the things that are out there. And I
So
know,
enlighten me, what more do I need to know? What am I missing?
well, like I said, there is a lot going on. People have been designated to do things. I mean, MJ is doing a lot of work dealing with funding, and obtaining, whether it be rehabbing a building, or finding another source for another homeless shelter. We've also, we're really understaffed, including the Salvation Army, who has just really stepped up to the plate in so many ways. And it may be more pertinent to get a summary from, say, Mary McClintock maybe, or MJ, as to the steps that they have taken over time. And I know a lot is going on. I mean, I can't name everything right now. But I've attended the meetings, and Sarah also has. So, and Sarah's been involved in a lot of the other housing stuff. So if you wanted to
I just
add
want
to
to
that.
give you a snapshot of the meeting, Liv, so you know who's in the room. So help you with, because I don't know how the tasks were divvied out, but in the room were public safety officials, fire and police, service agencies, SearchNet, CSO, community action. There were individuals that were homeless. Mary McClintock was there. MJ Adams from the town was there. There was a representative from the mayor's office. And basically, the first meeting that I attended, in an hour and a half, we had a list down of things like priorities. What's a priority, from funding to housing? There was all this stuff that, it was like a think tank. And so they dropped it down into teams of action teams. Who's going to do what, based on your skill set and what you can bring to the table. I did not attend the last meeting with her, so I don't know, but it seemed, I have some confusion also, because when this was happening, after the first meeting, the mayor formed a task force.
Right.
I don't know much about the task force. I would like to know more about this task force, and if they're working in conjunction with this original meeting. So that was the premise of this meeting, where after people got it done, we got, together to, hey, this is happening, what do we do? And I thought the meetings were really well run,
I think that's great, I do, and I encourage it, as an individual and as a commissioner. I do think that it's more relevant to the second motion for a public hearing, when the Human Rights Commission may want to have a public hearing in the homeless situation. That's the time for task forces, ad hoc committees, and municipal officials to come forward and tell us in open public session what's going on. This is just asking us if we're interested in a study committee, which may be another part of the community solution of potpourri, as far as this is concerned.
I agree.
And they are looking at housing first in that group, is that correct?
Yes, they're looking at everything. I mean, everything you could think of. And Sarah's right, the other agencies were represented. I think there'll be a lot more information Wednesday night for those who can attend. It's here at 5 o'clock. So I think there'll be a lot more information as to what they're working with. Things will be more updated.
I'm ready to vote on the study committee, because I think what the study committee can do is attend those meetings and get information gathered, if that was the intent of your
Yeah,
motion. So,
that's
yeah,
Anything they want.
I think that's appropriate, I really do.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I second.
Rod was the
Rod
second.
seconded, that's
All
right.
right, okay. All in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? Because I think we're already doing it.
Housing first to me is the solution versus a Band-Aid. You know, I think a lot of what has been done so far are Band-Aids, which is great, because obviously it's an emergency situation. But I would love to kind of get on to the next step, which would be preventing it in the first place.
Absolutely. That's a long discussion.
May I speak to the second
That
motion?
it is.
Sure.
This is very simple. It's requesting the commission hold a public hearing on the issue. As you can see, the motion was filed on August 8th. It's now October 15th. Full disclosure, individually, I think that our commission could have done a lot more on this issue. Going back to last summer, not pointing fingers, I'm disappointed. I think we should have jumped on this issue immediately. I think we should have been in the forefront of community efforts. We were to some degree, but I think we could have done a lot more. I felt that we were passive, and I'm sorry about that. However, now we get to the meat of the issue, I think. We have the winter coming, as Sarah says. We have the opportunity to have a study committee on housing first policy. And most interestingly enough, we have the hearing you alluded to by Wednesday for community development block grant monies to go toward expanding the homeless shelter, which in my mind is the first real step the city has taken or wants to take substantively, along with a potential SRO on High Street, to literally address this issue on a municipal level, or start to address it. I think it's great. And this is where I think we should invite the mayor and MJ Adams and the ad hoc committees from the community that are considering this. And it may be a place where the Human Rights Commission, with the advent of winter, may want to step in and host a community discussion.
This is the one on the encampment, correct?
Right. Which the encampment no longer exists. So I guess what I'd like to do is amend it, if I may, slightly, to just deal with the general issue of homelessness in the community.
Because as Sarah has pointed out, I mean, just about everybody who is camping on the common is still camping somewhere. I mean, there was that small group that took up the New York offer, and a few people are at the shelter, which probably would have happened anyway, and everyone else is still in the same boat they were in. I mean, the common was attractive because it's downtown, right? I mean, that's it's safer.
Yeah, it's safer, there was lighting, I mean, every person that I spoke to that was camping on the common, that was a common theme, you know, that there were public safety officials that would drive by. That actually made them feel better because they were safer, you know, if you're a female and you're homeless and you're alone, that's a whole nother level of danger. And a lot of the females said they felt more secure. And the original encampment, they had a kind of a code of ethics amongst themselves about behavior and things that were okay, you know, and sort of like, you know, we're here and they're not making a fuss about us, so let's not call attention to ourselves and respect each other. You know, I don't know, like I said, I have reports how that turned into what it did with, you know, individuals coming in just during the nighttime hours. And, you know, I'm sure there's footage, there was a camera that was pointed at on at all times.
Yeah, you know exactly what we're talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
there was the second wave of, and that's what happens. I mean, it's people who are younger and maybe without the best intentions, you know?
But I would agree with Lou's changing of his motion to have it in general, just the homelessness issue and holding a public forum. Now, my question for you, Lou, is timing, you know, because we have two motions here. What is your vision for that? You know, 'cause we have the first motion that we just,
What's my vision for a public hearing?
like the time frame from,
As soon as possible. I mean, it's up to the chairperson. I would say next month. I don't see any reason why we can't do 2 or 3 things at once.
So in a nutshell, what is the motion in a sentence or two, or three?
In a sentence or two or three, is to hold a public forum and hear, a forum on the homeless issue in Greenfield
Next month.
next month. In one sentence.
How about next meeting, because we have to discuss.
Next
Next meeting. Yeah.
We have to discuss next month's meeting.
Second.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll agree with that one too.
If I may, let's dive just slightly deeper into that, just a little bit. So, you have the 10 star on the common, right? And obviously, it grows a little bit each week, right? And it gets to an unsustainable point, ruining the common. It just wasn't the right place, right? I mean, I understand it's the reason why that's the spot. But it seems like it was never, you know, the city government never said, well, hey, the common's on a good spot, but here's the other spot, let's organize that. They were just like, oh boy, we don't know what to do, people on the common, we can't have them on the common, where are we gonna put them? How about Wedgewood Gardens? Oh, that's not gonna work, and they just kinda gave up. Until the solution was finally, let's just kick them off the common, we'll tell them we'll house them somewhere, but then we really won't. And that was it, and now we're at that point.
Just to remind you that 2 years ago, there was camping on the common, and the mayor actually condoned it, is that the right word, approved of it, rather.
Yeah.
He said they were camping in other places, and he said, well, why don't you camp on the common? That's in the Greenfield report, 2014, I'll look it up.
Correct.
So that's where my confusion was, and I agree with you. It wasn't, you know, I think if anything, this body was ahead of the curve in November when we started talking about it. And then nothing was done.
That's the ironic part.
Yes.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
This body, and I credit Lorraine with this to a large degree, this body foresaw what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Not exactly, but in a great sense, this body saw that there was a homeless crisis in this community, and one way or another it was going to come to that. So and I also want to echo what you said, Greg. I completely agree with you. I was very disappointed by the municipal response to this crisis. They were people, especially at the council level, there was a lot of flailing around. There were a lot of ideas that were perhaps well-meaning that made no sense as a practical matter. I don't want to go into those, we all know what they are. But what we really need, and one of the things that maybe we can start to address with a little traction now with policy is a plan. Yeah, it's not going to go away. The crisis and the problem of homelessness isn't going to go away. But our response to it may be more effective in the future. So I really, this was on our little local level a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions.
Absolutely.
It was like one disaster after another. One day after another was
It's showing the biggest weakness of Greenfield as a city right now, is everything, and it echoes other politics. Everything has to be just A or B, right? When both A and B are incorrect, right? So there's the camp that says, they can't be on the common, it's ruining downtown business. That's fine, I agree with that. And then there's the fact that these people need a place to live that's safe and sanitary and secure. That's also correct. So you got each side butting heads about it. And on the city council too, that was the divide, right? And no one can just say, let's find an actual solution to the problem. You know, those people, the campers on the common will get honked at 6 a.m., they get swore at outside car windows. You know, it's just, it was a tragedy, like you said. That could have been dealt with a lot quicker. I think, again, kudos to the mayor on the final solution as it was stated, but we haven't actually fulfilled that yet. So I would like to see that promise be fulfilled. And it was a promise that we would help the people on the common and not just abandon them. So we need to do that. And then after that, we need to figure out how do we prevent it from happening again. Because it will. It's happening right now, as you said. There's people still in the woods, you know.
Well, see,
so.
that premise is that's where it gets complicated. Because, you know, it's easy to make a statement like that, but then you have to widen your scope to what causes homelessness, and it's different for different people. It's, jobs that don't pay a living wage, the housing is one issue. There's a whole host of factors, and I'll even say it, inadequate healthcare, contributes to people that struggle with mental health issues, that don't get the help they need, and they lose their housing because they can't afford to pay it, or they're just not getting the right help that they need in order to sustain independent living. So a lot of this falls within the scope of human rights, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about like lack of access to basic needs for people.
Right.
And so that's where I get, I need help like refocusing that, because it's the housing first policy. That's a great start, but how do we contribute to that conversation that addresses those inequalities that contribute to homelessness?
How can we get it so people call and say, hey, I need a place to live, and they have,
Right, and that might be advocating, because I always think, that bigger systems is we need to change the state policy, and have a housing first policy for individuals, not just families. Because if you're a family and there you go have an individual person for shelter. Because families are the only ones that have a right to shelter in Massachusetts. So, we could also advocate for that as well, to change that, but it's complicated. The housing, building structural housing is only one piece of the puzzle. So I just don't want to forget that it's complicated.
that's what Director Higgins had said, basically,
Yeah.
when she was
Yeah.
here, is that it's there's so many factors there, and it's not just Greenfield. Luckily, Greenfield is addressing it, and I think the more we push that along, the better. But you're absolutely right, I mean, it goes up to the state and beyond to do something. Greenfield can't solve it.
And the public forum is a great place to have a conversation, because you'd have, all of the people that are in our government that you can invite, and citizens, and have that conversation, because there are going to be people in the room that can advocate for it at that level. If we make that known that this is something that really needs to change. We don't have to do it per se as a commission, because we are a commission of the city of Greenfield, but someone in the room can, and I don't know if it's enough notice, but Jim McGovern would be a great person to invite to the forum, and I'd be happy to share contact information with you.
Oh, I have it, sure.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the things that makes Greenfield unique in the region is, we are the county seat in a poor county. So a lot of the resources for people who struggle are located within Greenfield, and if you're someone who needs to access these resources, well, then you want to be in Greenfield, because that's where the resources are. So the need here is so much greater. And that also has to be taken into account when we talk about homelessness, and when it's brought up on a level that's beyond just the town, but when it's talked about even in relationship to the state, like, if the resources in, northern western Massachusetts are located within Greenfield, then the people who need to access the resources need to be in Greenfield, and so we need to have more places for folks who struggle to make rent in Greenfield. But we're going to have it worse than the surrounding towns. So if we can be a part of figuring it out, that's huge.
Figuring it out without rewriting the system from the ground up, which
Right.
is probably what's needed, but we can't do that. So
Right.
working within the parameters of
Yes.
society, how do you prevent it? It's an ethic question.
But you don't want to be in Conway, you don't want to be in Shelburne, because this is close. This is where the places that you need to go and the people you need to access are.
It's a very good
Maybe I
point.
can give Greg a little peace of mind, because you mentioned how, they were on the common and people were doing things. Well, we had it, at these meetings at the library, we must have had 50 people there. And one of the responsibilities was for a couple of the people to go and look at other places that might be able to be used as a campsite. And people went out and did that, and that included the area across from the fairgrounds, where the trailer park used to be, established campgrounds already. They looked at many places, and people had donated money we had somebody who was dealing with, somebody, I think it was at the church there, who agreed to be the fiduciary for keeping track of the money and making sure it was all accounted for. That church had also agreed to put up a porta potty, and they would also have people come to that church up until like 9 or 10 at night, open downstairs so people could go in and use the facilities. But there were a lot of places looked at in detail as far as could we use them. And part of the issue was it was either public land or private land. You needed a permit for some of it. There was a tax issue. I mean, there was always some little barrier there that never worked. All those pieces never worked out for one piece. So maybe that gives you a little peace of mind that yes, people were, they weren't just left there, that people were doing some things, and maybe that's one of the behind the scenes things that I alluded to earlier.
Yeah, it sounds like this group was pretty much the ones doing everything.
Very proactive.
And I think
The
that's,
Congregational Church is the one
Okay.
that opening their doors.
They were amazing.
and that's excellent. And I think we talked about that when Claire Higgins was here, or maybe it was Captain Peabody, that Greenfield is very lucky that it has that charitable
Yeah.
sense, that there are a lot of people who care. But in order for it to all work out, the city government's got to get behind the wheel a little bit too, you
Right.
know?
And MJ was at all these meetings too, also, as representing the mayor's office. So there was a presence for them also. The Chamber of Commerce representative was there, mentioning all the businesses that they deal with and that they would, be absolutely willing to help too. So there was a lot. It was just a horrible, situation, and I felt so bad this summer when we had those 95-degree days and then thunderstorms. I mean, it was awful. And so many people did help them. They brought meals to them, and Sarah said she was there all the time. Even Penny Ricketts brought water over there. And this was, when she was after her medical issue there. So a lot of people really, really did, contribute. It may have made the situation easier. It didn't give a solution, a magic wand kind of solution, but I think it made it a little bit more pleasant and for them to know also, because some of the homeless folks came to these meetings and they, voiced what their concerns were and how life was from their point of view, and that was very helpful for the group too. And it was very helpful for everybody, because then these folks in the common that were there, they understood people were trying to help them, and that people were working diligently to do that. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that there was a lot, behind the scenes, which was great.
Do you have another motion, Lou?
I think we have to vote on this one first, but yes, I do have one.
And this one was to,
This is the public hearing motion?
oh, okay.
Yeah.
All in favor? Although I,
Okay, so only the last motion has to do with city and state collaboration. The only, I studied this a little bit in terms of doing a little research, and I was hoping to find a little help on what we could do about this shelter situation. The only example I found in Massachusetts that I thought was successful was what I call the Boston model here, which is the city of Boston, the state of Massachusetts, collaborating to address from a couple of years ago their own overcrowding situation. And in that situation, they partnered to create room for 250 people. Ironically, as part of a 3-month winter plan that we've discussed previously. In this situation, it did involve it, but not to say now, there's a lot, obviously apples and oranges here, that Greenfield's situation is very different from Boston's. Maybe not in terms of how it really is, but in terms of the numbers. But the city of Boston did kick in to this, and the city of Boston and the state obviously undertaking the lion's share in this, were successful in not only creating enhanced shelter space that winter 2 years ago, but also a direct pipeline from the sheltering facilities to detox and recovery facilities, and it sort of made that part of a seamless whole for that. I thought it was, I'd like to learn more about it, but it seemed to me at first blush to be a very successful model under exigent circumstances, and I thought it was something that we want to pursue. Again, this is a study for city and state collaboration. The thing I like about Greenfield, and I've said this since we started down this road, the thing I like about Greenfield's instincts are right. Greenfield is doing stuff without actually knowing they're doing it or moving in that direction. They're doing housing to some degree, small housing for people who need that kind of housing. They're moving in the direction of helping with SROs. The CDBG hearing is an attempt to get grant money, as I understand it, federal grant money to enhance sheltering. This is all good. This is all great. The only thing it isn't is collaborative. You know, and when I say collaborative, I don't speak about how committees like we discussed before. I want to speak about federal, state, and city governments on the same page, with the same amount of money, following a particularly specific plan. This is the only one, and I stand to be, one of the reasons maybe we should study it is there may be others out there. I didn't know, this really appealed to me when I read about it. And I think it's something that we may want to have Greenfield do something like this, you know. And if we should get Congressman McGovern at the public hearing or representatives of his office, we may want to ask how to do it and if they'd like to do it. And if it's a possibility with us, along with the senators from Massachusetts. So this is, again, a study thing.
But that goes back to how this all started with the overcrowded shelter. You know, I think priority number one for us is still what it was a year ago, where you don't want anybody who wants shelter to be turned away. And that the Salvation Army shouldn't necessarily have to be doling out of its coffers to make that happen. So I think that addresses the first issue. The common kind of gave it a new topic as well, but I think it's important not to forget about just the emergency shelter aspect of it. I mean, if we just solved that, that would be a big step in the right direction.
I agree.
You know?
Well, I also had read about the shelter in Boston. I believe they received a huge grant, it was like 1-point-something million to help establish that. My guess is it's probably federal funds mixed in there somehow. And if there's federal, or especially federal, funds in it, then our folks could go there. Because if it's the reason that the shelter on Federal Street, we have people who come from all over the state. It's a Greenfield Family Inn, but it's housing people from all over the state because we get federal money. So I think the one in Boston would probably fill up quickly, but it may be a resource, not a first resource for Greenfield to use also. Because if they're accepting that money, they have to accept people from everywhere. But I thought it was a good model, and they've certainly worked on it for years. Also, there's another resource, or another site called Invisible People, and it highlights a lot of the homeless folks, but it also highlights things that other cities are doing. One of them, they took abandoned stores, the big box stores that went out of business, mostly because of e-commerce. But they took them and they built these beds up on sort of on the wall, and everybody had their own privacy, and it looked like a great step in towards a solution. So they do have a lot of not just highlighting the homeless people, but things that other people are doing. There's YouTube's on YouTube. There's things. I signed on for their email list, so I get a lot of emails from them. But they do a lot of good work too. I don't know if Sarah is aware of that too.
I just had a question about What's the name of the program in Boston? Is it have a title to it, the one that you're referencing?
I'm not aware of a title to it. It did involve the Pine Street Inn and St. Francis House shelter. But the program as a whole, if there is a title, I'm not aware of it.
And they received, we're not sure if they received, it was a collaboration between the city of Boston and the Commonwealth?
Right, and the Commonwealth.
I think if you just Google New Homeless Shelter Boston.
Because what I'm curious about is that what you mentioned, but this speaks to my realm, is
Yeah.
the connecting people to, treatment or recovery services. So, if we're gonna form a study committee, that's something that I would be interested in,
Yeah.
because I'm already connected to BSAS and things like that, because if it's connecting people to treatment or recovery, it's gonna have to go through BSAS, which is the state organization, Bureau of Substance and Addiction Services, and that's where all the funding comes from, and then Mass DPH, those two kind of combine to address that level. So I'd be interested, personally on, I'm gonna vote yes to this motion, because I think it's, we have to think creatively, and creatively means, funding sources from this community, the type of churches and the service agencies that are willing to put some money up, and average citizens, and then state and federal, because you need those dollars to do something of this magnitude. So I'm gonna vote yes on that, because I really, and I'd like to be part of the process of exploring that, if that's okay, finding out exactly, where the funding came from in the Commonwealth and what line item, because that would be important to me to find out.
I'd like if you do.
Okay.
Sound really knowledgeable about this.
One thing I think that kind of holds us back, well, as long as I've been on this commission, right, is that we don't have the resources, and it's not really even our responsibility to actually do these things, right? To me, the commission is supposed to make sure that they're being done, if that makes sense. So I like these motions because it doesn't, I don't think it draws us too far into like where the one's going out and trying to figure all this out. Because on our end, it sounds like it's oversimplifying it, but we should just be saying, hey, this is a problem, you need to fix it, and we're not gonna leave you alone until you do. It doesn't have to be like, I think a lot of times we get too into like the real nuts and bolts of things, and then they kind of fall by the wayside because we actually can't really do anything about it.
I think I'm anticipating the second question. The second question from Mayor Martin to the City Council will be, yeah, I know, how? It's like, we'd like to, but how?
Well, that's why they get a salary. It's paid to figure it out. I mean, that's the,
So what I would, and we don't get a salary, but I would like to, I would like us to be able to say, we were talking about that, and we think that something like that. One of the great things about our resolution for a citywide freeze plan, in my opinion, is that I think it placed the city sort of on the dial about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's exactly what we need to do.
And I think part of the reason, and I hope that part of the reason for the expanded shelter space, I hope before the winter sets in, was that, and was the sense of urgency that came from this commission. So, and I think the underlying theme of these three motions is pushing the city.
Right, and I think Lorraine's done a good job of making us less in contention, about things, and more so, I think, again, the mayor has really engaged on this issue quite a bit.
Yes.
But even he is just one person in the mix. I mean, yes, he can put a lot of things into motion, but it's still extremely complicated. I don't think anybody expects the mayor to say, hey, I've come up with the master solution. It's everyone who's at these meetings that you guys are going to, it's a group effort. But as long as we don't get too far into trying to be the fixers rather than the promoters of doing the fixing, I think we're safer that way.
Yeah, I agree.
And you've said that a lot in the past.
Oh, yeah.
We're an advisory.
Yeah, the thing that haunts me, I'll tell you, and I've said this before in these meetings, our meetings, the thing that haunts me was the community action executive director. Even now, when I asked her one question, I said, given, and this was before the grand bargain, right, at the state level, I said, given a minimum wage of $50 an hour in a person afford to have an apartment, any kind of apartment? And she said no. Now, that to me, in a nutshell, for me, encapsulates the problem of homelessness in this community.
And in many communities,
In
I
many
mean, it's all over the country.
This is gonna be a rough slog, if that's the case. And I like the fact that we're hitting it, or trying to hit it on multiple levels, because I think that's the only one.
You have to acknowledge the facts. I mean, nobody in Greenfield city government created this problem.
Right.
You know, they didn't design the way in which rent is calculated and the market controls housing. I mean, none of that is on us or on anyone in Greenfield, but it's certainly something that needs to be fixed, whether that's small fixes in a lot of different ways or one major overhaul. You know, again, it's almost like we get into philosophical
Right.
debates rather than you know, concrete ones, because we have no other choice.
And, you know, landlords, I mean, they have a right to make money also. However, anybody had a home repaired in recently? I mean,
Huge.
It's huge.
Huge.
And they have to absorb those costs or pass them off to the tenants. So it's, you know, it is definitely multi-level. But, you know, a landlord doesn't have a building, so he can lose his home.
Right, it's
or
not on
she.
them either.
No, I mean, they're trying to earn money off their investment also.
And you want tenants to have rights. If water is leaking, you want the landlord to have to fix it. Well, the
Right.
landlord needs money to fix it, so you better, you know, be ready to pay some rent.
Right, so, you know, $15 an hour isn't gonna cut it at
No.
all. And it's, you know, so what do the tenants do, what do the landlords do? So,
As Greenfield grows as a city, you need the housing that cities have, which is single occupancy
Right.
units
Right.
that are, you know, $300-400 a month maybe,
yep,
and they're affordable, whether that's coming from a subsidy or whatever.
We
I
can
mean,
talk about then about the gentrification of Greenfield, and that's what we're really talking about here.
yeah,
You know, it's, you know, overpricing things so that the average person can't afford them because they want to attract a certain kind of people to the city. You know, I mean, that's the basic premise of gentrification is pricing people out. That, you know, for whatever reason that, you know, and I don't know who controls that mechanism, but that seems the way it goes, and it doesn't seem like, you know, I'd like to know how reliable landlords are for doing that for people. You know, if they're, you know, you're right, I mean, the conversation we're talking about that's reality, but how many landlords are actually taking care of their buildings? You know, so I've been a renter my whole life. You know, I live in a shared house, I rent a room because it's in my apartment. But I've seen a shift in responsibilities that, you know, maybe 10 years ago, when I actually did have my apartment, things were taken care of in a certain way. And landlords that were lacking on that, it wasn't acceptable back then. And it seems like a lot of people that I talk to, it's a common theme. Things aren't being fixed. Like, you know, you have a leaky roof, it's being fixed inappropriately, and it's going to leak in a week. And there's a lot of different factors, but that's again being near to the minutia of the issue. But the real issue is minimum wage doesn't cover an apartment for somebody. And that's, there was actually a, I don't know, CNN or CNBC did a national study done on this that said, basically states that at nowhere in the country for $15 an hour can you get an apartment on your own. Nowhere. You know, so it's like,
right.
you know, and I say, I would just like to focus on like what you said, just try to focus on something that we can control or that we can be advisors to. Okay, we've been researching this, we have a committee, these are some of the things that we found. These are maybe some ideas that we can do in Greenfield. I think that would be it.
And I do think you hit the nail on the head when you said as Greenfield grows, it is a city. It needs the services that a city has, and it needs the housing options that a city has, you know, not that a town or a neighborhood has.
Right, agree. And I think Lou, I mean, Greg, you said that, you know, my approach to things is, I don't think it's passive. I think it's non-confrontational. I think you get more, cause I know passive has been passed around, but I just think that you get more done out of conversations like this than finger pointing and saying, well, you know, you this, you that, and that just divides people even further, and nothing gets done. You know, I think, and maybe with the other way, things are a little slower to get done, but everybody will be seems to be working together also.
So I think the question in front of us though is, do we want to move forward on the idea to study the, what Lou called the Boston plan, the idea of looking into one area of collaboration that Greenfield hasn't yet, which is collaborating with state and federal, which now that we're a city, you know, it seems like a logical thing, but just to look into what are some of the ways that other towns, in particular Boston, have collaborated to be able to get the services in.
That would actually be good to study
Yeah.
before we have the public officials come in also.
And such as the idea of expanding shelters with pipeline connections, detox and recovery, which seems like something Greenfield could use.
Yeah, and then there's going to be a little bit of devil's advocate there, because I agree with you. But what I foresee, because that is my realm, is don't have enough treatment recovery services here, and transportation to other places. There's one detox that will pick you up, actually, to add care in Worcester, and Clifford and Huntington will actually come and pick up the person who's coming to the facility, but not everybody does that. So that's why I want to know, how are they, in the city it's easier because they have more resources there, there's more, you know, you can walk down the street and there's like three detoxes or
Right.
methadone clinics or whatever's needed, but yeah, it just, so I'm just gonna agree, I mean, I'm gonna call the question, because you
Yeah.
made a motion,
So we need a second, right?
I'll
You
second
get
it.
picked up by AdCare, and now
Sure.
next thing you know, you're in Worcester. You don't know anybody. You're trying to be in recovery.
Sometimes people, places and things, sorry, but you know, if you're pre-recovery, you're going into treatment, people, places and things, so for some people, it's good to get out of Dodge for a little while.
And you're asking, how the hell did I get here? Where is,
Yeah.
Right?
Right, I mean, you're like, it'd be nice if the services were in this area. You know, I mean, not that it's not good to have the other options,
Right.
but I mean, it's gotta be uncomfortable to just be picked up and just drive an hour away.
Yes, as
Yeah.
someone who has flown a family member to Hawaii for treatment, yes.
There you go.
He did consent, but he was kind of like,
Where am I going?
you know,
Yeah,
you do what you gotta do.
okay, so can we?
So we have the motion,
I seconded the motion.
second, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. All right, that's done. Is that the last of your
Yep,
motions?
I'm done.
Well,
Okay.
and thank you to Lou for putting so much time into these. I mean, I don't wanna say you're like our motion guy, but you
Yeah.
certainly take the
You were
bull
this
by the
week.
horns, and it's always, you know, well-written, and you kinda take what we talk about in the meetings, and you seem to translate them into, you know, an actual concrete,
Yeah,
you know,
thank you. There's nothing
motion,
original
so.
about this. We've talked about all this at one time or another, but you're just kicking it on the agenda, that's all.
So who's gonna look into it?
Sarah certainly expressed an interest.
If someone wants to give me a deadline, I look better at deadlines.
And if,
You
you
can tell
know,
me when.
Tomorrow, 4 PM,
yeah.
full report.
Lou seems to also have been, done some of the initial research, so.
You can appoint the committees, it's up to you.
So if you two, you know, wanna work
Sure.
on that, collaborate.
Absolutely.
I'll jump in as a helper too, so, I mean, you can take the lead, but I'm certainly willing to,
Awesome.
make calls and.
Now, this next motion, was that yours, Lou, also?
I don't think so. What's that?
To initiate investigations into the existence of unlawful discrimination in the town?
That was the basis for the investigation and the administrative
Oh,
hearing.
okay.
So I think it's all duplicitous.
Yeah, you did do that one. Next item, subcommittee clarification, the mayor's office. This is a story of sorts, and it shouldn't be, but it is. We had a meeting that we were going to have in September. Everything was sent in on time, way on time. It never got posted. So we obviously did not have the meeting, and it was the mayor's office. Before that, the week before the meeting, I had called the mayor's office because after our last meeting, which was August, I sent in the two issues that we wanted to deal with, which was Sarah's suggestion about we should be, the suggestion was to change the bylaws to report to the town council possibly instead of the mayor. And then there was a clarification on subcommittees. So, I sent those requests to the mayor's office the week before our last September meeting. It never happened. So I waited a couple of days, didn't hear back, so I did call. Our meeting was supposed to be on the 10th, so it was right on the 4th or the 5th that I did it. Waited till Friday, and I called them. Come to find out, one of his administrative assistant was out, so she never got the email. I spoke with the other person in the office who said, well, this is kind of a legal issue that needs clarification, and it will have to go, to the mayor and to Mark also. So I said, okay, I said, but, the meeting is Monday, and then I found out it wasn't because they hadn't scheduled it. Anyway, I've been in touch with the mayor's office a number of times, asking, she said she was gonna send it to those two people. It didn't happen. I called later, because she said it would take a while, so I called later, spoke with the administrative assistant who had been out. She didn't know anything about it, and she says, well, let me look into it. So clearly nothing had happened. So I said, okay, get back to me. And she said that she had not been aware of it, they weren't aware of it, and she would now pass it on to the mayor's office and to Mark. I said, okay. She did, contacted me a few days later and said, they want to have a meeting with you. I said, okay, I held a whole week open, because she said sometime that next week. I held a whole week open, except on Monday, but the rest of the days were available, nothing from them. And then I contacted, and she says, I contacted the following Monday. She said, well, Mark is out sick today. Did not explain why it had, nothing had happened those other days. He's out sick. I'll let you know tomorrow. Tomorrow came. I sent her an email. Do we have a time and date yet? No, but I'll get it to you tomorrow, which was a Wednesday. Haven't heard a thing since then.
All right.
And I feel as though I've kind of dogged them enough on this issue, and I want to bring it to the commission to look for suggestions. I was going to send them another email today, and I thought, this has to be brought to another level at this point, because where it was happening repeatedly that it wasn't moving forward. And it wasn't because I was not trying to make it move forward. It just wasn't on that end. So that's what's happened. I haven't got a response or anything, this legal response as far as those
Does that
issues.
sound familiar to you at all, Lou, or?
History repeating itself.
Isn't that strange?
So I have the original, I've changed two set of issues, because that's what's on the agenda item is what I brought about changing our bylaws.
Right.
So that's separate, but the subcommittee question, I remember this conversation very clearly, and I agree with Lou, because I think it's the definition and language that's confusing people. Because I went and I dug into the whole stuff again to understand for myself. So what's meant by that is I can't go and work for city council, being a commissioner. But if I want to be a liaison to a subcommittee or a committee, I feel based on my understanding of our existing bylaws, that's allowable. So the fact that it's taken this long, and I know you asked for the town attorney twice to come in and get a clarification, I think the next letter should be addressed to the mayor, and do we have the town attorney's email, CC the attorney and say, we would like a clarification. And give them dates, so they understand that we've been asking for this over and over and over. And it actually handcuffs us from doing the Human Rights Commission work that we were appointed to do. Because how are we supposed to engage with our community if we can't go to these other subcommittees, et cetera? as a liaison, not as a committee member, but as, because my vision was actually for us to report to the town council like every other town department does. If we, doesn't have to be every month, but maybe every 3 months, we sit there and we give them a little report about what we're doing, engage that level of our community. So that's my understanding.
What a great idea. I really think we should do that. If I might, you asked a question, Mary.
Yes.
Let me give you my opinion. I would do it. Have you done enough? As far as I just would let it.
You want to just make some subcommittees?
We made two tonight,
Yeah.
shocker.
Let's just do it.
Yeah, we
So,
Yes, we did.
we
Well, we
we
didn't
called
get-
them study committees, but in actuality, they were subcommittees.
Right.
I think the subcommittee issue raises its ugly head when this commission usually does something that's perceived as controversial. And after that, it just sort of goes away.
A subgroup of members of this commission is just another entity within the commission.
Right.
I think how it all originated was they did not want us taking members of the public, putting them on our subcommittee, because then we're in theory appointing them to that
Right,
subcommittee.
right.
And they really should have to go through the whole city
Right,
process.
right.
So that's fair enough, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But we should be able to make our own groups. There's no way that we can't make
You're
our
right,
own.
and the one thing that I was very,
Right.
very adamant about people can say anything they want about pro or con of this. The one thing I was very adamant about was the fact, and still am, is the fact that this commission is treated differently at times than any other board and commission in the city. And the thing that surprises me about that, when you think about it, is the budget, the ordinance, the subcommittee issue. Yeah. Right, and a variety of things. And if you, that never happens when we write a press release and say everything is sunny and wonderful in the town of city of Greenfield, Massachusetts. It happens when there's a controversial issue. Or over a prolonged number of months is a controversial issue. I don't know why. But I think that the enabling ordinance of this, you guys can read as much as clearly as I can, is extraordinarily clear. There's no verbiage, there's no misfit. It talks about investigations, administrative hearings, and it talks about subcommittees. So I don't see the necessity, unless you feel it would be profitable somehow, to keep beating the same horse. I think that if push comes to shove bureaucratically, maybe that. There is a municipal law unit in the Attorney General's office that approved this ordinance when the city council, at that time the town council, passed it in 1997. We want to go back for an opinion for them, fine. But
Seems unnecessary.
no, I'm just,
Right.
I don't, if people aren't returning your emails or calls, I really don't think they're that serious.
They returned them, I mean, for the most part, and then I was told, the last time is, I'll get back in touch with you tomorrow. Tomorrow came and went, and there was never any further contact. And the subcommittee issue, I think, is solved, because if we're only creating committees within ourselves, that's not a problem. But Sarah's suggestion about reporting to the town council instead of the mayor is still an issue, and it certainly would be, a legal issue, and that was exactly what I was waiting for, exactly what they told me it was.
So if you and Sarah showed up at a city council meeting and say, we're here from the Greenfield Human Rights Commission, we'd like to give you a report. That's.
I think we should be able to give a
Right.
report.
Of course you can.
So I'm thinking, is that, I don't see a problem with that.
No, I would definitely do that. I think we
But
can do that.
the report would have to be given during public comment, because they have their own rules and mechanisms. So we would be relegated to public comment. So that's where my motion came forward, is to actually change our bylaws, because it actually goes more deeper into that, to whom we advise or report to is not one solitary individual person, regardless of who the mayor is. Okay, 'cause I don't want the optics to look like this is, anyway, it's, one person does not represent a diverse community or our community as a whole. And in my vision, the town council represents our community better than one single solitary person. And you would have to change the existing bylaws for us to report to town council, because that also would alter how commissioners are appointed. They would go through the town council, not just one person. Like the mayor, as we know, has to push your application forward in order to, even for it to be considered.
That is what I had been thinking. I think we are being killed by attrition. The amount of time it took for you to be able to join, the commission,
Yeah.
the forgetting to send Mr. Mosher his letter.
Yeah.
The fact that we're down to, I feel like I'm in an Agatha Christie play, and then there were none, right?
Yeah, if we all left, they would not refill it.
Maybe, but there is that too,
And part of this,
Yeah.
if I may finish, part of this motion is also, because when you do that, my vision is to put us in the same category as the other departments that you're talking about, commissions, where we would get town emails. Because who is in this current state that feels that their civil rights have been violated and aren't comfortable coming here? I don't know any commission, because I've heard that before, I don't know any commissioners, is that creates a confidential way of reporting something like that. And I believe that Philippe, when he was chair, brought it to the table to have a website where you have an anonymous letter, or a form that somebody can fill out. But that would change that. If we change the bylaw, it would give us town emails. So we're not using our personal email for commission business. It legitimizes, when I see something that's at a state level from a state email, I know I know that person is not talking to the right person, and it's only going to go to that person. It's not going to, because of security and all that stuff. So that's my vision, is to change the bylaws, even to that level,
Oh, great. So let me second your motion. If we jumped into that motion thing. I'll second, because I think it's a great idea. I got a couple questions or comments for you. First, you realize amending the ordinance is going to go through the council,
Yes.
then the Commonwealth. It's going to take a lot of time, right?
yes.
Okay. So as long as you realize that this is a long-term project, fine.
Yes.
The other thing I'm curious as to whether you know is regarding other boards and commissions in town, the ones that may report to the city council, are they substantively different than us? For example, and I don't know if they do, because
They don't.
they don't.
It's town departments.
Just departments.
Just
Okay,
departments.
I see.
I think, and I believe we should write reports to the city council. I think that's an excellent thing to do. I think we would run into a lot of trouble attempting to separate ourselves from how every other commission is set up, where the mayor appoints and the council confirms. That process seems like it's somewhat set in stone, but I definitely agree that we need to have much more contact with the city council, and we shouldn't just be sending things to the mayor and that's it, So,
And if we change a bylaw for a commission, it would be a general bylaw that would be changed. So in essence, all commissions and committees could do it if they so choose.
I think it's a great idea.
I think I can explore too, what other places do, what other human rights commissions do with theirs, such as not only Northampton, but there's others across the state also, to see how they dealt with it.
I'll definitely vote yes for this, but I think it needs a research phase.
Let's say, I move to make a motion to explore
Yes.
the possibility
Okay,
of.
let me get the motion down here.
Yeah, I move to make the motion to explore changing our existing bylaws to make the town council the public body that we report to, as opposed to the mayor.
And then we'll re-second that as a friendly amendment.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None.
Nothing that says we couldn't, report to the town council about tonight's meeting, right? I mean, we really could start just telling them everything that we're doing. I think that would be very helpful in
And I
you know,
think they're,
kinda-
I think they're interested. It's the same everywhere I go. It's, you know, they're interested, but they also have a lot of things to do too.
Oh, yeah.
And to include them in the conversation so they're well informed.
Right.
You know, because they're kind of like our ally. You know, they're
Mm-hmm.
a fellow public body that we're supposed to work together, and this affects them, their constituents.
Right. Now, with the minutes, if we had those readily available, we could certainly email those every meeting.
Every month.
But even like a little bit of a blurb that we write up about what we're working on is.
Because
I
their
think-
meeting is always
Oh, yeah.
the following Wednesday after.
Oh, okay.
But I think your motion brings up other points too, that we probably should keep them in the loop. And also what you said about the anonymous forum, you're like, making me a flashback here about, like, we brought this up like a dozen times.
Yep.
You know, I would really like to contact the city again and just keep on about the anonymous forums, because
With the chair's permission, either you or me, I'd like to, just maybe have a conversation about that, you know, and if the town attorney is available, just pick his brain, you know, this is what we'd like to do. Like you said, you know, it has to go to town council, to the Commonwealth, but what does it look like to get, the email and the website, get that going before any of this is done? I mean, why don't we have a town email? Because if you go onto our page and the town of Greenfield website, the phone number is the mayor's office. There is no email, there is no confidential form. You call the mayor's office, and if you're a marginalized person that's not comfortable with that level of government, you're not gonna do it.
we haven't seen a citizen complaint in a long time, which doesn't mean there aren't any.
Right.
It just means that nobody's coming here.
And that would help, I think, engage the public more if they had a mechanism to communicate with us. In essence, it would bring them here.
Because your question, this Mark Smith,
Yes,
who is he? What is he?
he's the director of administration at the mayor's office. He's the former director of, what is that, Kathy, Carbon Personnel.
Oh, I see. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
he's a lawyer. He has a juris doctorate, very smart individual. But he's the director of administration.
So what's the director, I'm just curious, is this, somebody referred to, and I don't know him obviously, somebody referred to this person as the mayor's chief of staff, is that true?
That's what I've seen.
You know, I think, that's another term for director
Oh,
of
it is?
administration. Yeah, I think that's just a
Similar
language difference,
role.
a similar role, yeah, similar role.
Do you have, Lorraine, do you have to go through this gentleman, or do you go?
He's the vice mayor.
I go through the administrative assistant in the mayor's office, Karen. Typically, I will send an email to her and also to the mayor's office, which are two separate emails.
Just curious how things work these days.
He's really good
They
at
don't, it seems.
relaying info. I don't know if you reached out to him directly, through his town email.
I have
Because
not.
I've always had good interactions with him, and he's, like I said in one of the meetings, he is my go-to person when I have a question at that level, and I don't know to whom I should be speaking. I will ask him, you know, are you the right person, or is there somebody else? He's always really good about getting back to me promptly, so he might be something that you could email and say, I'm following up on a conversation. And he's very good.
He may not have even been notified of it yet.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know,
that's-
yeah, so I will send something to him, just saying, you know, Kevin's very busy, and do you have a response or a suggestion?
We have a lot of things to cover. I mean, obviously, the list is fairly exhaustive, you know, that we come up with. It seems every month, we look at a number of things, and then it's trying to engage on those things and actually make a meaningful impact. But I would just put the call out there, you know, Mr. Mayor, if you watch our meetings, that we really would like to collaborate.
The thought of stonewalling seems to keep coming to my mind, and I think it's because of the complaint but that's my own.
Now we can really talk.
That's what I,
All right.
I mean, that's my
The
own
30
2 cents,
seconds I
but,
mostly clicked off, because I
Yeah.
saw it blink and I
Okay.
meant that the battery was dying and it
So
went
the
off.
next
so-
meeting, I think.
well, one more thing I want to talk about, which I have a lot in the past, because it's one of those things, like we all have a different sort of dear to our heart kind of agenda thing.
Oh,
And, huh?
bullying?
Yes.
And, yep.
Bullying, this is Bullying Awareness Month, and, a lot of the stuff I see on TV is, kids in the school bullying, which absolutely happens at unbelievable levels. However, there's also the bullying in the workplace. And there are enough sites out there to talk about it, Dignity Together, and, workplace, work should be health, should be a healthy place, things like that. And we do have a bill still trying to get through the state legislature to address the issue. But as somebody even, with the recovery issue, there are many even suicides dealing with workplace bullying. It's degrading, and it's meant to be degrading, and it's deliberate. In my case, it was anyway. People knew what they were doing, and the reason I know that is after they were spoken to, they never even apologized and said, gee, I didn't know. I didn't mean it to be that way or anything. And it continued for 20 years. And it was awful. It took away, for me personally, it took a lot away from my personal life, my home life, impacted everything. Including health issues too, trust issues, health issues, sleep issues. I mean, it impacts everything. And that was, it does this with just about everybody who's bullied in the workplace. And I guess I haven't figured out why people do it. How do you, first of all, one of the people who was in my bullies, she had a very strong faith tradition that she adhered to, but it's like, how can you do that? How can you do that and then treat people that way? It's Catholic to have confession, but, when you're a repeat offender, but it is usually done by very insecure people who feel that they can do that to other people, and they do it to other people. And it's awful, and it's one of those sort of hidden issues too, because, to complain about it also, usually the supervisors are condoning it, encouraging sometimes, which is my case, not doing anything about it. As a matter of fact, I may have said this before, but one of the supervisors I spoke with said that they couldn't do anything about it because people have freedom of speech. And I said, no. That their freedom of speech ends when it impacts my life negatively. And it was like, no, they have freedom of speech, you can't do anything about it. And this person who said that is a lawyer. She's actually a judge now. And so it's, let's keep promoting that. And that was, another element of the bullying, that the bullies get promoted. So it's an awful thing, and this is, Bullying Awareness Month. And I bring it up again because most of what I see, when I think one of those talk shows, fix everybody's life up kind of thing, it's all about children who are being bullied, which is absolutely wrong and cruel and creates also a lot of suicides and just very dysfunctional, people. But it happens to adults too.
The only thing I would push back on is the idea that bullies are insecure. I've often found that bullies are people who really feel they can say what they want and get away with it, and that their supervisor's going to back them up. I have found, in the situations that I've seen, the bullies often feel very good about themselves. They feel very entitled. They feel very right to speak their truth and very empowered. I haven't found bullies to be insecure.
Sounds like it's time for my turn in the reporter, I think, this month.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Call up Dr. Phil.
No, I mean, really,
yeah,
like,
really.
we talked last year about putting something out there for the
That's
bullying
true.
month,
That's true.
I'm completely okay with you saying that you're the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission on whatever you write about bullying. I mean, I think that would be an important thing to
It would be, but if I did it, I think I would do it as a private citizen.
Well, that works too, but.
Because it is, sort of my story or whatever,
Right.
what I endured for those
Right.
20 years. And not only did it impact me, but it impacted my son. And, not that he's doing very well, but at the same time, it impacted my quality of life with him.
Right.
And he knew what was going on, as he got older. Matter of fact, he said to me after he became a lawyer, he said, I wish I was on the bar in Massachusetts. He said, I'd come up and do something. But he isn't. So, but it just, it had an impact on his life, economically, emotionally, all sorts of things.
And the colleagues who saw it happen, who weren't a part of it, but who feared if this can happen to her, this can happen to me,
Right.
so I better sit down, shut up, and just not talk to anybody, not get on anybody's bad side.
Right.
Also not be seen as a lion with her.
That's right. It's very isolated.
Yeah.
It really looks bad on the employer too. I mean, that's just, not only does it impact you, it impacts people around you, impacts your family,
Yep.
it impacts the workplace
Yeah.
overall. I mean, I'm sure
It's toxic.
it hurt your productivity there, it hurt everybody around you,
Sure.
you know? So you would think that they'd be more proactive in putting a stop to that. I mean, any supervisor who condones that should be immediately removed, but that kind of structure is not always in place.
It isn't, and this is a state agency, so, you're there for life pretty much.
Right.
Unless you kill someone, but.
Well, even then, might be okay.
And I think bullying is a learned behavior. There's a concept, hurt people. And I really think that bullying is a learned behavior. If it's not, you're an educator, but I feel if it's not identified at an early age, because often these type of behaviors manifest in childhood. And if they're not addressed or explored, they just grow. And like you're talking about systemic approval of bad behavior. Based on whatever metric they're looking at, it increases productivity and yada, 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 whatever, the things they're going to use to explain away bad behavior. And I think that when I think of bullying month, I think of having those things in place for younger children to learn how to cope with their own hurt, that they in turn hurt somebody else, to deal with that basic premise, that it's just because you were hurt doesn't mean you can hurt somebody else. It's not okay. It's not okay to hurt anybody or bully anybody.
Right.
And, when you were talking, I think the last year, Ashley Stemple actually spoke really eloquently about her own experiences with bullying,
Yes.
and reminded stuff of myself over the years of different job situations where I'll call it attempted bullying. My mom raised me to
Free bullying.
I got the teacher eyes, looking
Yeah.
at like really. But that's because I have an inner resource that people don't
Yeah.
have. If you don't have it, or you have part of a system that, but I've been blessed also to work in jobs where it wasn't tolerated. When I was in the
Right.
education
Right.
field, working with at-risk youth, that behavior from any staff was not tolerated, and there was disciplinary measures. It was, first time you get a warning, second time, you're getting 2 weeks unpaid, third time you're gone, because it's not helpful to everybody. So I would support what Greg said, if you want to write up that. I think it's, when people tell their personal stories, it makes others stand up for courage and change it. If she can put herself out there and tell her story, then, people look around where they live and where they work and identify. And there's a lot of safeguards now for that type of behavior, but I'm not fooling myself. I know it still goes on.
It absolutely goes on. And in the educational field also, higher education is unbelievable with books. But I think with kids with at-risk youth, you're dealing with a whole different component of education, and which is great that it isn't tolerated. Mine was tolerated and condoned, and the thicker skin, get a thicker skin story.
You do not have to look far to see examples of horrible behavior being rewarded.
Yep.
And it's everywhere. Stories like yours you don't hear, but you do see, countless examples. how's people behaving in ways that are reprehensible and finding themselves in better and better positions, so.
Was it the kids, was it with Snapchat? I mean, that changed bullying, it took it to a whole nother level. That I don't know how children and adolescents survive with that app being around, because, you know, you can post an image of somebody or bullying or put, you know, some kind of threat, 30 seconds is gone. Gone, no trace of it. You have no proof that this other child did what you said they're doing, you know, and it's just, yeah. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. It's, I think something that has to be brought out into the open, and, you know, children and adults are victims of it. So that was what I just wanted to say about school work. Any other comments?
So
Or
in closing on the meeting, I think it'd be helpful to have like a brief wrap-up by you of like what we are going to work on, and if you need help with anything, like that would be, you know, let us know at the end of the meeting so we can kind of
okay,
have
so
a game plan for next time.
we have to discuss first next month's meeting. We went through this last year, I think. November 12th is, November 11th is the holiday for Veterans Day. However, it's celebrated on Monday. State and, well, at least town offices are closed. So we cannot have our meeting the second Monday. The third Monday is the week of Thanksgiving. And I remember last year, the discussion was that people are just too busy that month doing other things, or vacation, or whatever. So I wanted to throw it out there to see what folks want to do. December, the second Monday is on the 10th.
I think we should definitely not go into December.
Do we want to do that, or do we want to,
I think we have so much to cover, we could go early in November, or we could do the Tuesday. I don't know if we can get this room, but I think that it hurt us to take a month off, I think now we're kind of scrambling to find relevance again.
anybody think that was the point of it? I mean, I hate to be cynical, but, you know, it wasn't our fault that it
No
happened.
comment, right?
No, I really don't.
Yeah.
I think, I just think that it's,
Drop balls.
yeah, there's so many drop balls.
Yeah.
So many things.
All right. So we are at the 15th, so if we,
Although to go till December, I mean, we have a lot of what we're doing is exploring different things. It gives us a lot of time to collect data, and it gives a lot of time to give the public, you know, information that we're having a forum coming up,
So
and to publicize it.
I agree, and maybe we could have some dates for the subcommittees that we just formed to meet
yeah,
next month, to do that work so that in December we hit the ground running.
That's sort of where I'm at.
so December's, the second Monday is the 10th. So do we want to skip November, and then you folks have your subcommittee meetings? Or do we want to try to meet on if we meet on the 26th, because the 19th is part of Thanksgiving week. If we meet on the 26th, just 2 weeks later that we're meeting again.
So the 19th, Monday the 19th, Thanksgiving week.
It is Thanksgiving
Right.
week, and it's,
Is anyone here not going to be here on Monday the 19th?
I'll be here.
I'll be here. So,
as far as I will be too, but I do remember last year the discussion was we wouldn't because it was too, but, so
Right.
that's what I'm throwing it out there. You know, do we want to do that, or continue?
I'd be open to that, simply because I know I'll be here. And if everybody knows they're going to be in town, why not?
We have a forum, if
I
all
only agree with
five of us are here,
Yeah, and Mo will probably, you know.
even
Never
if she's
leave.
going out of town, we still have a
Right,
forum.
yeah, I mean,
No reason
it's
to.
fine with me, I just want to.
So the 19th,
Yeah, if you don't mind.
day before my birthday, but I'll
Oh,
make
Perfect.
sure. What?
We'll bring a little.
I'll check and make sure.
You bring a little cake, I'll show up.
A little one, did you say you lost some weight?
That's okay.
I'll make sure that the, you know, the room is available. So I'll check the town
Okay.
calendar.
And if not, then.
Yeah, I think we get into trouble sometimes with the subcommittees, we have to announce that meeting, we have to post it,
Yeah.
and it's only 3 of us here.
So are we gonna have the public hearing on the 19th?
I think, is that what we're
We
deciding?
kind of voted to have it at the next
Yeah.
meeting, so that was the vote.
Yeah.
So Rod has the, Greg is looking for a summary, Rod has the notes. Do you
Very
want to
good.
do a quick one?
Oh, okay, yeah, quick summary?
Yeah.
I can do that. We began at 6:15, we're in attendance, the Pride poster, we had some confusion. Sarah had a motion to table the discussion, and we voted 3-2 to do it. The audience left. Then we brought up Lou's resolutions, the first one being to appoint a study committee for the Housing First policy to make a recommendation as to whether or not the committee should like it and should promote it. We had a 4-1 vote that we would form the study committee. So far, all I know is that Lou's on it. Greg liked Housing First. He said it's a solution, not a Band-Aid. Then the second one was the motion to hold a public hearing on a homeless situation at our next meeting, and we unanimously voted for that. And then at the end, it was decided our next meeting would be November 19th. Our third of Lou's motions was to study the city-state collaboration on shelter overcrowding, what he called the Boston Plan with the Pine Street Inn and St. Francis House Shelter. After discussion, it was unanimously decided that we would move forward with it with Lou, Greg, and Sarah serving on that subcommittee. Then we had an update about what was going on with Lorraine not getting any answers to nothing. And we talked about Sarah maybe we should report to the town council rather than the mayor. We seemed to like it. So Sarah made a motion to explore changing our existing bylaws to make the city council the body we report to instead of the mayor, which was unanimously passed. We talked about the issue of a confidential forum to allow citizens to raise a concern to the HRC without going through the mayor's office, and how that could be resolved by reporting to the city council instead. Lorraine brought up Bullying Awareness Month and shared her experiences. And then we closed by setting November 19th as the date for our next meeting, which would also include the public hearing on homelessness.
And then Ron gave an excellent summary.
Yeah.
Perfect. That makes it easy to
I do
digest.
serve a purpose.
I think
And I'll
it's-
make a
it's-
motion to adjourn.
And Lou made a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Woohoo.
All right.
Yeah, that's great.
All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it, close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.